Hey there, how's it going everybody? In this video, we're going to learn how to add a custom domain name to our website that we deployed in the last video. So in the last video, we deployed our application to a private Linux server that anyone could access from a browser, but we're still accessing this site using an IP address. In this video, we'll be walking through the complete process of buying a domain name and setting this up so that when we navigate to that domain name, it takes us to our application. So let's go ahead and get started. So first we need to register a domain name. Now registering a domain name does cost money, but it is fairly cheap. So they usually run about $10 to $12 a year. So that usually comes out to about $1 a month. Now, in order to register a domain name, you're going to have to do that through something called a domain registrar. Now, there are a lot of these out there. You can use whichever one you prefer. The registrar that I'm going to use in this video is called NameCheap, and that is at NameCheap.com. Now, NameCheap isn't a sponsor of this video or anything like that. I've just used them for some time now and have found them easy to use. But there are also registrars through Google, which is at domains.google.com. Most of you have probably heard of GoDaddy, which is another one that you can use. So you can use any of those, but I'm going to be using NameCheap in this video. And if you'd like to use NameCheap as well, then I'll put an affiliate link in the description section below where you can go and create an account if you would like to use them. But once you've created an account with your registrar, then we can search for domain names by going to their website. And usually they have a search bar where you can search for domains. So this one here is right front and center. Now, if you've never bought a domain name before, then it's actually pretty difficult to find one that isn't taken. So if you want a domain with 4 or 5 letters, then you're pretty much going to be out of luck because those are likely all taken. And even ones that you might not think would be taken might actually be. So for example, let's say that we wanted the domain for our application to be something like, myawesomeblog.com. So if I said myawesomeblog.com, if I search for this, then this is going to come back and say that this is taken. Now, you also have the option to make an offer if that's a domain that you really want, but there's no guarantee that the person who owns that domain will even get that offer. So anytime I see a domain is taken, I usually just move on to something else. I don't even try to make an offer on it. So it might take you some trial and error before you actually find one. So I searched earlier, and I think if I wanted my domain to be like myawesomeapp.com, then I think that this is still available. So if I search the registrar for that, then we can see that myawesomeapp.com is available and that it's available for $8.88 a year, which is less than $1 a month. So that's pretty good. Now, some registrars will also offer you other top-level domains as well. So you can see that they also searched myawesomeapp.net, myawesomeapp.org.io, and things like that. So you can add those if you ever want to pick up those domain names as well. But for this tutorial, I'm just going to get myawesomeapp.com. So I'm adding that to my cart now. And once that's done, I'll go to View Cart. And now in the cart, we're going to see that it's going to offer us some other add-ons, which is pretty common whenever you check out on sites like this. I usually don't take the add-ons. So we're going to register for this domain. You can choose, 1 year, 2 years. I'm just going to do 1 year since this is probably just a throwaway domain. It says that there's also a fee associated. That is this ICANN fee. That's going to be through any of those. Now this WhoIsGuard, we can see that it is enabled and set up to auto-renew, and that is $0. That is free forever. Now I actually do recommend checking this because a WhoIsGuard, what that does is it protects your privacy with buying this domain. So a lot of people don't know this, but whenever you register a domain, you actually have to put in a lot of information like your name, your address, how to get a hold of you, and things like that. Now, if you don't use some type of protection, in this case, it's something called WhoIsGuard, then that information is going to be available to people who look up that information. So for example, I have a WhoIsGuard on my personal website. So if I pull up my terminal here, there is a Linux command called whois. And if I say whois and go to coreyms.com, that is my main website, if I type that in, then we can see, if I scroll up here a little bit, we can see that the registrar for this it blocks all my private information. So the whois server is at whois.namecheap.com. If I go up here, things like the address, this is through a whois guard, so it blocks all this stuff. But if I didn't have this blocked, then my name would show up here, my address would show up here, possibly my phone number and email address, and I don't like that. I like having privacy, so if you use the whois guard, then that is what that does. So a little off tangent there, but that's why I think that that is important. But none of this other stuff I ever really get. So there's a premium DNS. There's all kinds of sales here with like private email, you know, how to use Gmail with your domain, stuff like that. I do all that stuff myself, so I am not going to need that. I'm just going to use the domain. So I'm going to go to confirm order here. And now we're taken to the page where we can pay for that order. So I've already got a credit card set up on here, but if you haven't set that up, then you're going to have to use like a credit card or PayPal or something like that in order to buy your domain. So I'm going to go to Pay Now and actually pay for this. Okay, so my payment was completed. So now that domain name should be mine. So now I'm going to go down here and click on Manage beside this domain name. So I'll click on Manage. And now this takes me to a list of domains that I have registered through NameCheap. So we can see that the only other one I have registered right now is my personal website, corems.com. But now we also have myawesomeapp.com. Let me see if I can make this a little larger so that it is easier to see. Okay, so now we have our domain name, and now we're ready to connect this to our application. Now, in the last video, the service that I used to set up my application was Linode. So I have Linode up here in the browser. Now, if you're not using Linode, then this process is probably going to be very similar, just not exactly the same. But just, you know, look at the documentation for whatever service you're using, and it's likely going to be very similar to this. Now, Linode, if we click here on domains, then we can see that I have my corems.com domain name here. Now over here, they have some documentation to this DNS manager, and that's how to set up a new domain name. Now I already have this pulled up here in the browser, and I'm also going to add a link to this in the description section below if you'd like to follow along. But they have some very good documentation in here on how to set up our domain name. So if we go down here to our DNS setup checklist, then we can see that it walks through the process. So register, purchase a domain name if you haven't already. So that's what we just now did using NameCheap. And now it says set your domain name to use Linode's name servers. You'll need to do this on your domain registrar's website, then wait up to 24 hours for the change to take effect. So what they mean here, if I click on this, use Linode's name servers, these are Linode's name servers here, ns1.linode.com, ns2.linode.com, and we can see it says after you purchase your domain, log into your domain registrar's control panel and set the name servers for your domain name to the entries below. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to go back to NameCheap and we're going to set those equal to these Linode name servers here. So I'm going to go to my domain list, and you're going to see an option over here for manage. I'm going to click on manage. And now we can see that we have a lot of different options for managing our domain name. So we can add years to our registration. We can add years to our whois guard, buy some other services. Now, what I'm interested in is the name servers here. So the name servers, I want to do a custom DNS. Right now it's set up to this NameCheap basic DNS. Now what that means is if I go to the domain that I just bought, then it's probably redirecting me to something NameCheap oriented. So if I go to myawesomeapp.com, then we can see that that NameCheap is actually handling this domain name right now. It says this domain is registered at NameCheap. It was recently registered. Please check back later. So what we're going to do is instead let Linode handle this traffic instead of NameCheap. So that's what we're going to do with those name servers. So instead of this NameCheap basic DNS, I'm going to come down here to custom DNS, and now we will add, let's see, that was 5 servers from Linode. I'm going to go back to the documentation here and go down to the name servers, and I'm just going to copy these in. Now instead of going back and forth, I'm just going to add all 5 of these and change them manually. So that was NS1, NS2, NS3, NS4, and ns5.linode.com. So I will save that. Okay, and once that is updated, we can see up here it says DNS name servers usually take 48 hours to switch over. So this could take some time. I've actually never seen it take 48 hours. On Linode's documentation, they say it can be 24 hours. So it's going to take a little bit of time, but usually that's done pretty quickly. So I'm going to pause this video until, for a little while, and I'll pick up after some time so that change has probably taken effect. And actually, while you're waiting for that change to take effect, there are some things that we can do on the Linode system to get this set up further. So we can see here, if we scroll back up to the checklist, so we have now done number 2 here. We've set our domain name to use the Linode's name servers, so that's done. So moving on to number 3, use the DNS manager to add a domain zone and then start adding some basic DNS records. So at that point, we can go back to our domains here. And what it means by adding a domain zone, if we click on our domains, then I'm going to go to add a domain. And on the domain here, it's going to ask us what domain we want to add. So I'm going to say myawesomeapp.com. And the email address, I'm just going to say admin@myawesomeapp.com. That's not actually set up yet, but I'm just going to add that in for now. And we can add some tags if we want to add some tags to this domain. I'm going to leave that empty. So I will click on create. Okay, and after we click on create, we're going to see that we are going to be able to add some DNS records here. Now this can look a little intimidating because there's all kinds of different records. We're not going to look in depth at all of these, but if you want, then you can look each of these up individually. So we have an SOA record, NS record, MX record, AAA record. Now, if you want some more walkthrough on this, then the documentation that I have pulled up here walks you through all of this. So if I scroll down just a little bit, then we can see that there's a DNS manager section. And this is where it shows us how we can add a domain. So we already added the domain like we did. Scroll down a little bit more. We already did this part where we added our domain zone and our email address. If I scroll down a little more here, then we get to the add records section. So we've already seen the add records page. And now it's showing us how we can add a single record. So the page is divided up into different sections, each type of a DNS record. Locate the section for the type of DNS record that you want to add, then click add a DNS record. So what we're going to add is an A record here. So I'm going to go back to our section here, and I'm going to say add an A record. And when we add an A record, we're going to need a host name and an IP address. Now, for the host name, if I go back to the documentation here, we can see that the host name is going to be something like www, and the IP address is going to be the IP address of our application. So if I go back to the A record here, so for the host name, I'm going to fill in www, and the IP address is going to be the IP address of our application. So to find this, I'm just going to cancel this for now. If we go back to our dashboard, then we can see that I have my list of servers here. So if you wanted the, so I've got the Django server and the Flask server for the Flask tutorials and the Django tutorials. If we want the IP address of our Flask server, then we can click on that Linode. And within the summary here, we can see that the IP address is listed here right up in the front. You can also get that from the networking tab where we have the SSH command. So from either of those locations. So I'm going to copy that, go back to our domains, go back to my awesome app domain, and down here in the A records, let's add that. So for the host name, that's going to be www, and for the IP address, I'm going to paste in the IP address that we got from our Flask server. So now I'm going to save that. Okay, so after we've saved that, let's go back to the documentation here and let's scroll up to the top to get back to our checklist. So now with the checklist here, we've done these top 3 things here. We've done the registration, we've set up our name servers, we used the DNS manager to add a domain name zone and added our basic DNS records. Now it's saying we should set a reverse DNS. Now, if we open this link here and look at the documentation for setting up this reverse DNS, this documentation is actually a little bit older, and I don't think they've had a chance to update this yet. Because if we look at their examples here, you can tell that this doesn't look like the cloud manager that we have in Linode. This is actually their old manager at manage.linode.com. So I'm not going to follow this documentation exactly. We'll just kind of do this the way that it's done in the new cloud manager. But this is a good documentation for just at least figuring out what reverse DNS is. We can see here that it says computers use DNS to determine the IP address associated with a domain name. Reverse DNS lookup does the opposite by resolving an IP address to a domain name. So instead of going from a domain name to an IP address like DNS usually is, reverse DNS goes from an IP address to a domain name. So let's go ahead and get this set up. So I'm going back to my Linode here, and I'm going to click on Linodes. And now we want to click on our server that we want to set up reverse DNS for. So I'm going to click on our Flask server. Now within here, we're going to go into networking. And within networking, I'm going to scroll down to our IPv4 IP addresses. Now here is our IPv4 IP address. Now over here on the far right, I'm going to click on this settings tab here and then go to edit RDNS, that is reverse DNS. If I click on that, we can see it says edit reverse DNS. So we already have something in here, but now we are going to put our domain name instead. So I'm going to type this in, www.myawesomeapp.com, and you're going to put whatever your domain name is in there. So I'm going to save that. Now at this point, you might get this error message that says we were unable to perform a lookup for your domain at this time. Now, the reason for this is because all of the changes that we've made to the name servers and the DNS records and all of that stuff, all of that takes time to take effect. So all this means is that those changes have not taken effect yet. So it can take, anywhere from a couple of hours to maybe 24 hours. It usually doesn't take that long. I mean, it can take, just a few minutes. But if you get this error, then that is what that means. So the only thing that you can do is pause the video and just wait for those changes to take effect. I know that that's frustrating to pause in the middle of tutorials, but it's really the only thing you can do is wait. So I'm going to pause this video, and whenever this is working, I will come back to this and we can pick up from here. Okay, so I paused the video and I went and took about a 30-minute break or so. So now these DNS records and name servers should all be updated at this time. Like I said, 15 to 30 minutes is usually about how long it takes anytime I've done this. But in the worst case scenario, it can take a few hours. And like the websites say, it can even take up to 24 hours. But I've never had it take that long. Usually 15 to 30 minutes is good enough. So now that we've taken a break, let's try to save this and see if these DNS changes have taken effect. So I'll go up here and click on save. Okay, and that works. So that must have been enough time for those changes to take effect. So we can see that now we have a reverse DNS set up for myawesomeapp.com for this IP address. So now let's actually try to open this up in the browser using our domain name. So I'm going to copy our domain name here, and I'm going to open up a new tab, and I'm going to paste this in and go there. And we can see that now when we navigate to www.myawesomeapp.com, it opens up our Flask application. So that's exactly what we wanted. So that's good. We're no longer using our IP address. So now let's test out some of the functionality just to make sure that this is working properly. So if I log in, then I can sign in with my email. I think that was the password I used. Yep. So there we go. So let me try to do a couple of things here. Let me create a post, and it looks like new posts are working. If I update a post, and we can see that our routes are also working with our domain name. So this is going to myawesomeapp.com/post/28/update. So that is working as well. It's not filling in the IP address for those things. Okay, so the updated post worked. If I delete a post, then that works as well. Let's see if I can update a profile picture. So I'll select a different profile picture here, and that seems to be working as well. We can log out, and we could even go in and go to our forgot password and send a forgot password to our email address. So if I do that, then we can see an email has been sent with instructions to reset your password. And I actually just saw that email pop up on my phone. So that seems to be working as well. So that is all of the functionality. Okay, so this seems to be working well. Now, one thing I want to try here is if we remove the www and just go to myawesomeapp.com, I actually don't know if this will work. Okay, so that doesn't work. Now, if we want to set that up to work as well, then we could go back into our Linode and go to domains, and we could go to our myawesomeapp.com domain. And within these records, we could simply create another record. So I'll add another A record. And within here, we are just going to leave the host name blank instead of putting that www. And the IP address, we will put the same one in. So I can see the IP address over here. For my application, it is 45.56.75.15. Okay, so if I save that, then that adds that record in. Now, again, that record isn't going to update immediately. It could take, 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, something like that. In the worst case scenario, a couple of hours to update. But eventually that should start working, and you can go to either myawesomeapp.com or www.myawesomeapp.com. But I'm not going to wait for that to update right now. I'm just going to go back to the www version of the website. Okay, so hopefully you got your domain name working with your application and would feel comfortable doing this for your applications in the future. In this video, we set this up using Linode and NameCheap, but no matter what services you use, it should be a very similar process to what we did here. Now, speaking of Linode, Linode was kind enough to sponsor this video. So I'm going to go back to my dashboard here real quick. So like I was saying, Linode was kind enough to sponsor this video, and I've used them for many years and have recommended them to people long before I even had any sponsors. So if you get a chance, I would highly recommend giving them a shot. Like we saw in earlier videos, they have this new and improved cloud manager that makes spinning up servers fast and easy, and you can choose from available images when you spin those servers up, or you can even upload your own custom image. And if you're doing something that is fairly common, then they have these things called stack scripts that allow you to spin up a server with all of the relevant software ready to go. So for example, if you're making something like a WordPress site or something like that, then you can simply choose their WordPress stack script that spins up a server with WordPress ready to go. Also, they have 9 worldwide data centers so far, and they have 2 more set to open this year in 2019. So no matter where you are, you should be able to spin up a server that is close to your audience. So if you wanted to check them out, then feel free to use my referral link in the description section below, and you can get $20 of credit applied to your account to try them out. Okay, so with that said, I think that is going to do it for this video. Now, there's still a lot more that we can do with this site. So for example, if we look here in the address bar of our browser at the top left, we can see that this website is not secure, which means that it is using HTTP instead of HTTPS. Now, most websites these days should have HTTPS set up, but that is a topic for another video. For now, we have our live application with our custom domain name working, so that is great. So if anyone does have any questions about what we covered in this video, then feel free to ask in the comments section below, and I'll do my best to answer those. And if you enjoy these tutorials and would like to support them, then there are several ways you can do that. The easiest way is to simply like the video and give it a thumbs up. And also, it's a huge help to share these videos with anyone who you think would find them useful. And if you have the means, you can contribute through Patreon, and there's a link to that page in the description section below. Be sure to subscribe for future videos, and thank you all for watching.